This is the VON Major Newscast.
Good evening, I am Jarvis Bonner with your VON Major News Package for today, Wednesday, July 24th, 2019. In our lead stories nationally, grand opening of Culturama 45 slated for tomorrow, July 25th, and Von Radio's manager expresses his satisfaction with upgrade of media booths at Cultural Complex. Regionally, Puerto Rico's Governor Ricardo Rossello was expected to resign today, sources say. Internationally, UK's May bids farewell before Johnson enters number 10, and in sports, Oklahoma City Thunder unveils new uniform in partnership with National Memorial. We'll have the details of these and other stories after this message.
Another look.
Different from how you've seen it before.
Another look.
Takes an in-depth look into business, politics, science, technology, religion, and more.
Another look.
Featuring documentaries from the BBC, regional features, and local ones too.
Another look.
Every Monday at 3 p.m. on the Eastern Caribbean's powerhouse, Vaughan.
Welcome back, and now on to the national news in detail.
Is actually here, and it's going to be a spectacular year for Culturama. It's a milestone year for us. We have billed it as another homecoming, and believe it or not, we have the official opening of the festival on Thursday, the 25th of July at the Cultural Village.
That's Nevis's Minister of Culture, the Honorable Eric Evelyn. He was speaking in relation to the grand opening of Culturama 45. In addition to the opening, Minister Evelyn made mention of what exactly will be taking place.
During the opening, we're going to have our usual acts by some of our folklore groups. For this year as well, for the 45th anniversary, we will also be honoring some persons who would have contributed to the festival over the years. Prior to the official opening ceremony, we will have Nevis Pan Ensemble that will be playing from 5 to 6, and then at 6 o'clock the official opening will start. Of course, after the official opening ceremony, we will have the Teachings Junior Calypso competition. Now, I have been fortunate in hearing some of the junior calypsonians with their practice sessions at the village, and I must say that I'm very impressed with what I'm hearing for this year.
Nevis's Minister of Culture, the Honorable Eric Evelyn. According to Mr. Evelyn, a record number of 15 competitors will be vying for the Junior Kaiser Crown. As Culturama 45 approaches and revelers etc. put on the final touches, the Ministry of Culture in the Nevis Island Administration NIA is receiving commendation for the recent upgrades at the cultural complex here on the island. In June of this year, Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley, made the announcement that the government is expanding the media booths for C45 at the cultural complex. One individual who has expressed his satisfaction with the work is General Manager of Von Radio, Mr. Everett Weber Herbert.
We are very pleased with the vast improvement done to our broadcast booth at the cultural complex by the Ministry of Culture. It seems apparent to me that it really makes a difference in who is in a particular position at a particular time, because the Honorable Eric Evelyn, who is currently the Minister of Culture and who had worked in those booths with us for almost 30 years and therefore was abreast of the conditions. And I like to think that he had something to do with the improvements, so perhaps it's a good idea that he's there.
Mr. Everett Weber Herbert. Culturama 45 will be held from July 25th to August 6th, 2019. As St. Kitts and Nevis moves towards the banning of the single use of plastic, the St. Kitts Sustainable Destination Council has organized a march for Saturday 27 July beginning at 9:30 a.m. The event is dubbed March for a Plastic-Free SKN. According to chairperson of the organization, Mrs. Diane Taylor-Williams, the event has been organized as part of activities for Plastic-Free July, which is into its third year. She noted that it is not a very long march, we just want to get the message out.
The idea is for us to ban single-use plastics in St. Kitts and Nevis. We recognize that it is being done by other countries neighboring to us and other territories, and we believe that it's time that St. Kitts and Nevis comes on board and ban the use of single-use plastics, because we know that it impacts us not only economically, it also impacts us environmentally and socially in terms of people's health.
Mrs. Taylor Williams, who is also the Assistant Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism in St. Kitts, explained that going back to the use of reusable bags will be beneficial to all and the environment.
We are saying people should stop expecting the plastic bags in the supermarket and instead go back to what we used to do traditionally, which was to take your own reusable bag to the supermarket. Or we talked to them about having reusable straws, or better yet, not having a straw, skipping the straw.
Assistant Secretary at the Ministry of Tourism and Chairperson of the St. Kitts Sustainable Destination Council, Mrs. Dianne Taylor Williams. The march will commence at the Independence Square and end at the National Museum Archway at the Old Treasury Building in St. Kitts. Meanwhile, the Department of Environment is expected to propose to Cabinet a ban on single-use plastics, which includes styrofoam products, plastic bags, plastic straws, and plastic cutlery such as knives, forks, and spoons. This was expressed by Director in the Department of Environment, June Hughes, on the July 5th edition of Working for You. She made the announcement as St. Kitts and Nevis joined the rest of the world in observing World Environment Day. Mrs. Hughes stated that the use of single-use plastics is a challenge for St. Kitts and Nevis and is one that should be tackled to safeguard the environment. On February 5, 2018, at the opening of the Nevis Island Assembly, Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley, pledged that his Concerned Citizens Movement CCM-led Nevis Island administration is dedicated to ban the use of plastic and styrofoam use on the island. A sitting of the National Assembly has been scheduled for Tuesday, July 30th. The sitting will be held at the National Assembly Chambers, Government Headquarters, Barstay, St. Kitts. It will commence at 10 a.m. The last National Assembly sitting was held on May 9, 2019. The Magistrates' Court Code of Procedure Amendment Bill 2019 was passed during that sitting. The government of Argentina and the Food and Agriculture Organization FAO, in association with the St. Kitts and Nevis Marine Resources Division, held a training workshop conducted by Argentine expert Gustavo Wiki from the prestigious South American National Aquaculture Center, SINADAC. The workshop explored how the conversion of the parts of the fish that are typically discarded can be used as safe and nutritious products for the consumption of livestock and fertilizer. The initiative will also provide a new avenue for the employment of youth and women while helping to ensure the island's food security and reduce the food import bill. The innovative technique was brought to Nevis and can be used as an alternative to corn and soya meal, two ingredients which are currently imported to make local livestock feed. Following the workshop, Argentine Ambassador to St. Kitts and Nevis, Gustavo Martinez Pandiani, stated that we brought in our expert from Buenos Aires to work closely with the local fishermen and farmers and to share with them a self-sustainable technique of using fish waste as a resource. According to the ambassador, it will give Nevis the opportunity to reduce the wastage, not only for finding ways to use more fish, but also by utilizing the byproducts. And lastly, in our national news segment, St. Kitts and Nevis's ambassador to Cuba, Her Excellency Verna Mills, led a delegation to the ministerial meeting of the Non-Aligned Movement NAM in Caracas, Venezuela, which was held from July 20th to the 31st. The meeting considered preparations for the upcoming 18th summit of the NAM heads of state and government, which will take place in Baku, Azerbaijan from October 25th to the 26th. It examined the movement's positions on global issues relating to peace and security, human rights, development, and the promotion and preservation of multilateralism. The ministerial meeting concluded with the adoption of the outcome documents of the meeting, final document, Caracas Political Declaration, and Political Declaration of the NAM Ministerial Committee on Palestine, That's actually on Palestine, as well as the report of the Rapporteur General of the Ministerial Meeting. The NAM was instituted in 1961 and it has a membership of 120 member states. It is the largest grouping of countries outside of the UN system. The meeting was held under the theme Promotion and Consolidation of Peace Through Respect for International Law. That's the national news segment. You can visit our website at www.vonradio.com, or you can check us out on Facebook at Von Radio or our Von Radio YouTube channel for these and other stories. News from across the region is next.
Ladies and gentlemen, this here's another one for the steppers.
Swipe to win big in 2019. That's right, the Bank of Nevis Limited is once again giving you, our valued customers, a chance to win big. Just swipe or use your Bond Visa credit card for US $100 for a chance to win a cruise for two, an iPhone XS, or a grocery dash at Best Buy Supermarket.
Say what?
Sign up for a Bond Visa credit card and automatically be entered for a chance to win. This offer ends August 31st, 2019. So tell your friends and family to swipe to win big with the Bank of Nevis. The Bank of Nevis Limited, improving the quality of life. Like us on Facebook or follow us on Instagram.
Welcome back, and now on to the regional news. Out of Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico's Governor Ricardo Rossello was expected to resign today after more than a week of protests that rocked the island's capital, sources on the island have said. Thousands have jammed the streets of San Juan calling for the governor's resignation after Puerto Rico's Center for Investigative Journalism published a series of group messages between the governor and his inner circle that included homophobic and misogynistic language and jokes about Hurricane Maria victims. Demonstrators were determined to stay on the streets until Rossello stepped down, fed up with years of government corruption, high poverty rates, crushing debt, and the painfully slow recovery since the 2017 disaster. Overnight, an energetic crowd filled the streets outside the governor's mansion, waving flags and banners after news of the governor's anticipated announcement broke. The person expected to take Rossello's place is Puerto Rico's Secretary of Justice, Wanda Vasquez. Out of Cuba, Cuba has dismissed the findings of a U.S. academic study which found brain abnormalities in U.S. diplomats who worked in Cuba. The research follows accusations by the U.S. that Cuba carried out sonic attacks after several diplomats complained of unexplained symptoms including dizziness and hearing loss. The study's authors said brain scans showed the diplomats' symptoms were not imagined. However, Cuba said the results were unclear. Justice Francis Bell of Barbados and Justice Eleanor Donaldson Honeywell of Trinidad and Tobago have been elected to serve 7-year terms on the United Nations Dispute Tribunal UNDT as half-time judges. The two were among 4 judges elected by secret ballot at the recent 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly, and the appointments took effect on July 10th. The other 2 were Justice Rachel Sikwis of Malawi and Justice Margaret Tibula of Uganda. The UNDT half-time judges serve on rotation in New York, USA, Geneva, Switzerland, Nairobi, Kenya. They are deployed up to a cumulative period of 6 months per year, as decided by the President based on the caseload and any judicial absences affecting the work of the tribunal. To be eligible for appointment as a judge to the Dispute Tribunal, candidates must be of high moral character and impartial, possess at least 10 years of judicial experience in the field of administrative law or the equivalent within one or more national jurisdictions, and be fluent both orally and in writing in English or French. And out of Guyana, Attorney General Basil Williams have warned that the call by opposition leader Barrett Jagdeo for citizens to boycott the ongoing house-to-house registration by the Guyana Elections Commission is a criminal offense and could have dire consequences. The coalition government is adamant that registration is necessary to have a clean voters list for credible elections. But Jagdeo says his People's Progressive Party will not cooperate with the process, and he calls on citizens to refuse participation. His call was based on the argument that the process should not be carried out because it cannot be completed by September 18th, by which regional and general elections should be held 3 months after the Caribbean Court of Justice validated a no-confidence motion passed against the government on December 21, 2018. Guyana Elections Commission has reported some reluctance by citizens to participate in the registration in some areas across the country. Williams said that there have also been reports that enumerators are being threatened, but he said police will be there to protect them. And that's it for our regional news segment. Stay with us for news around the world. Welcome back on to the international news. Theresa May has delivered a farewell speech in Downing Street before tendering her resignation to the Queen. She wished new Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his government well, adding that their successes will be our country's successes. Earlier, Mrs. May faced MPs' questions for the final time and looked visibly emotional as she left to applause.
I am pleased to hand over to an incoming leader of the Conservative Party and Prime Minister, who I worked with when he was in my cabinet, who is committed as a Conservative, who stood on a Conservative manifesto in 2017, to delivering on the vote of the British people in 2016, and to delivering a bright future for this country.
Meanwhile, Boris Johnson has begun to assemble his team. Reports indicate that he will appoint the mastermind of the official Vote Leave campaign, Dominic Cummings, as his senior advisor. The BBC's Norman Smith reports.
The appointment of Dominic Cummings will delight others. For Brexiteers, his appointment will reassure them that Mr Johnson is prepared to adopt a much more aggressive and uncompromising approach. But Mr Cummings' famously blunt and maverick style may well spark discord and division. His critics point out he's already been found in contempt of Parliament after refusing to appear before a select committee. And this morning, the former Foreign Office Minister Alan Duncan, who quit ahead of Mr Johnson's appointment, warned against what he called unduly factional appointments.
Mueller has begun answering questions in public for the first time since his report on Russian interference in the last presidential election was released 3 months ago. He gave testimony before the House Justice Committee. As the session began, the chairman, Gerald Nadler, a Democrat, outlined why he believed it was important to go beyond Mr. Mueller's written reports.
President Trump ordered his White House counsel to have you fired, and then to lie and deny that it had happened. He ordered his former campaign manager to convince the recused Attorney General to step in and limit your work. And he attempted to prevent witnesses from cooperating with your investigation. Any other person who acted in this way would have been charged with crimes.
And Ugandan pop star and opposition MP Bobby Wine has officially announced that he will run for president in the 2021 election. The 37-year-old will challenge President Yoweri Museveni, who has been in power for 33 years. The singer calls himself the ghetto president and is a fierce critic of Mr. Museveni. More in this BBC report.
Bobby Wine comes to this political fight with a potent mix of celebrity and youth appeal. But the young pretender has real questions to answer. He has not put forward a clear plan on how to deal with the serious problems many Ugandans face, like unemployment, poor healthcare and education. Bobby Wine currently faces 2 court cases, including treason charges over the alleged stoning of a presidential convoy. He says he faces continuous harassment and is not allowed to perform in the country.
And that brings us to the end of our news segment. The latest in sports is next.
Fun without all the tools I need, but I'm at ease cause it's a breeze if I shop at TDC. Oh yeah!
It's back to school at TDC Business Center and City Drugstore Nevis, your one-stop shop for all your school supply needs. Get bundle savings on backpack and computer packages, but save 20% off all back-to-school materials and printers. Back-to-school shopping is made easy at TDC Business Center and City Drugstore Nevis. See stores for details.
Welcome back, and now the sports. In basketball, the Oklahoma City Thunder on Tuesday unveiled 4 new uniforms for the 2019-2020 season. The lineup includes a new city edition designed in partnership with the Oklahoma City National Memorial and Museum. This city uniform aligns with the upcoming 25th anniversary of the April 19, 1995 bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in downtown Oklahoma City. The Thunder and the Memorial worked closely with Nike to embody the spirit of resilience and remembrance to pay respect to the lives lost and all those impacted by the bombing. It also captures the memorial's mission of educating current and future generations about the Oklahoma City community's response to the tragedy, with a focus on the Oklahoma standard of service, honor, and kindness. In athletics, Tokyo 2020 medals created entirely for recycled consumer devices have been unveiled in the Japanese capital. The medals, which are designed to resemble polished stones, are the first sustainable medals in Olympic history, according to organizers. About 32 kilograms of gold were extracted from 6.2 million used smartphones donated over 2 years by the Japanese public. They also recovered 3.5 tons of silver and 2.2 tons of bronze to make 5,000 Olympic and Paralympic medals. The medals at Rio 2016 included an element of recycled material, but a lower level to those produced for 2020. In football, reports of racist abuse in English football rose by 43% from 192 to 274 last season, anti-discrimination charity Kick It Out says. Statistics gathered by the organization show reports of all forms of discrimination in professional and grassroots football increased by 32% to 422, up from 319 during 2017-2018. In professional football alone, reports rose by 46%, while Kick It Out received 159 reports from social media. Faith-based discrimination rose by 75%. Reports of faith-based discrimination included Islamophobia and anti-Semitism increased by a higher percentage than any other form of abuse during the period, as reports rose from 36 to 63. And in boxing, Russian boxer Maxim Dadashev has died at the age of 28 following injuries suffered in his IBF light welterweight fight against Subriel Matias. Dadashev was reportedly unable to walk to the dressing room after his bout was stopped by trainer Buddy McGirt at the end of the 11th round on Friday. He was hospitalized with bleeding on the brain and underwent emergency surgery but failed to recover. The Russian Boxing Federation paid deep condolences to his family. USA-based Dadashev had won all of his previous 13 fights but had to absorb a barrage of punches from Puerto Rican Matias during the course of the fight in Maryland. McGirt had said afterwards he could not convince his fighter to stop, but opted to throw in the towel when he saw him getting hit with more and more clean shots as the fight went on. British boxing promoter Eddie Hearn added, "So terribly sad to hear the news of the passing of Maxim Dadashev. Rest in peace." And that's it for sports. The general weather forecast is next. Welcome back. First, a synopsis of the Caribbean. A tropical wave is approaching the area. It will increase the chances for cloudiness and showers across the islands over the next 24 hours. Possible rainfall total over the next 24 hours is 10 millimeters. The weather tonight will be partly cloudy to cloudy with a 60% or a moderate chance of showers. The weather tomorrow will be partly cloudy to cloudy with a 50% or a moderate chance of showers. The winds are east-northeast at 15 to 28 kilometers per hour or 8 to 15 knots. The seas are less than 2.1 meters or less than 7 feet. Small craft operators should exercise caution. The sunrise tomorrow will be at 5:48 a.m. and the sunset tomorrow will be at 6:47 p.m. And that's how we wrap up the major news package for today, Wednesday, July 24th, 2019. Before we go, let's take a look at the headlines once again. Nationally, grand opening of Culturama 45 slated for tomorrow, July 25th, and Von Radio's manager expresses his satisfaction with upgrade of media booths at Cultural Complex. Regionally, Puerto Rico's Governor Ricardo Rossello was expected to resign today, sources say. Internationally, UK's May bids farewell before Johnson enters number 10. And in sports, Oklahoma City Thunder unveils new uniform in partnership with National Memorial. On behalf of the rest of the news team, I am Jarvis Bond wishing you